We all know admissions is pretty stressful. You have a lot to do, deadlines are involved, but do you know how to reduce that stress? Getting organized and creating a timeline that works for you. So let's start with a brief overview of the general college admissions timeline. We have the universal application along with the common application, which are used by most private schools, and they open in the summer right before your senior year. The universal application opens July 1st, while the common application opens August 1st. Public university applications open at varying times, and every school has their own deadline, so you have to check. Although large college systems such as the University of California system, or UCs, they do share one application and due date. For example, the UCs, which include UC Berkeley, UCLA, they all open August 1st, they all close November 30th. Most private schools, unless you are applying early decision or early action, they don't have application deadlines until more like December, January. Some go way late. I mean, I've seen some even in May, but that's rare, and always check. So depending on when you're applying, when you're watching this, you will have the time you need. You just need to organize it to maximize it. So before we assign time, it's important to know how much you're writing. Yes, you're going to be using that word count feature a lot. There are so many words. If you're applying to a private university, you'll likely be faced with the big general, "Why are you going to college?" prompt, often found on the Common application. The Common app is used by over 500 universities. The word count for their personal statement sits between 250 and 650 words. Each school decides what they want you to write about. Most require a personal statement or have the option for it, and that usually allows for a larger word count, like 650 words. But there are many other essays with all sorts of varying prompts, and those are somewhere around 150 to 250 words. However, you will find confusingly short supplemental responses, like hardly qualifying as essays, and they require writing nonetheless. These bite-sized writings, they can sometimes have a fairly thought-provoking prompt, such as, "What is the most significant challenge that society faces today?" It's like, whoa, that's such a big question, but then you're only allowed 50 words to respond. So don't worry, we're going to tackle that in a later lesson. Right now, we're going to be talking about this more broadly. So whether you are writing a long essay on a deep topic, a short essay on a deep topic, it takes time to brainstorm, outline, draft, and revise, and then revise again, and then maybe one more time. And that's all for one essay. So if you're applying to 8 schools, each one will have their own set of prompts. You might be able to use the same essay for more than one school as long as you make any necessary revisions, but it's best to prepare, at least just mentally, for the likelihood that you could be writing mini essays, up to 15 or even 20. And so one word, how. All right, the first thing, solidify your college list as early as possible so you have enough time to brainstorm every prompt and prioritize which essays need to be addressed first. Then create a timeline for each school according to the due date. Ideally, you want to begin working on your essays 4 to 6 months before they're due. Okay, but pause. Who just panicked? If you're well beyond this ideal time frame, it's okay. You're here, you're working, but you do want to be very clear with your deadlines for brainstorming, writing, and revising from this point forward so you don't fall behind. This may mean that you only have a couple weeks to brainstorm and another couple of weeks to write and revise. So if that's the case, do whatever you need to do to hold to these personal due dates. Set reminders on your phone so you know you're making progress, to meet those final application deadlines. And then remind yourself, this stressful time, it is temporary. Give enough time for research. This could be researching yourself or the school, depending on the essay. Figuring out more about yourself is that step that's just past brainstorming. So you have an idea of what you might want to focus on, but you do need to spend more time exploring it so you have enough insight. We'll address this later too. But we need just as much why as we have what in our essays. You also need to avoid distractions. More on this in an upcoming video, but we want to do everything we can to create a productive writing environment. So quick, what's one thing that will distract you from writing? For me, 100%, it is my phone. Okay, so you need to be very deliberate about where you are working or where that distracting thing is in your phone, for example, where that needs to be, probably not near you. It takes time to figure that out. But remember, creating a schedule so you know how to pace yourself, it will alleviate stress. It's kind of like if I was hosting a big dinner party. I'm going to plan the meal a week before, then I'm going to grocery shop the day before, and early the day of the party, I may prepare some ingredients so that when I really need to get down to cooking, I know the plan, things are prepared, it runs as smoothly as possible. I'm not racing, panicking, and making things far more intense than they need to feel. So it's a little bit of upfront work to avoid work later on, and also maintain a little sanity. So we'll wrap all of this up with a little visual to just keep on top of things. Now you get to decide how you want to organize your time and tasks. If I were to be writing essays right now, I would spend the first month narrowing down my college list because we can't do anything without the actual prompts. So that's the most important task, and that does take a little bit of time. Once that's complete, you're going to move over to brainstorming the prompts. Print them out, put them in a place where you'll see them often, and anytime an idea comes to you, write it down. Put it down in a notebook, a Google Doc, or your phone. And then in that third month, I would focus on writing rough drafts of all the prompts. So I have working drafts for everything. In months 4 and 5, I'm going to focus on revising all those drafts another 2 to 3, maybe even more times. That is going to take the most time. So I am going to plan for at least 4 weeks to complete that, if not 8. And then finally, this sort of fits somewhere in that last month or two. Ask a couple of people you know to review those near final drafts and add any final changes. Here's an alternative timeline you might like better. Months 1 and 2, they're exactly the same. You're solidifying your college list and brainstorming for all of the prompts, long and short. But in months 3 and 4, you're going to focus entirely on the longer word count essays. You're going to go from rough draft through revision to final draft. So these longer essays are completely out of the way. And then in month 5, you can focus entirely on some of the shorter essays with shorter word counts from brainstorm to rough draft to final draft. And then, of course, you're going to ask a few people who really know your voice to read over your essay so you can be somewhere between formal and casual and capture your very natural voice. No matter which method you choose, I just want you to use a method. I want you to go beyond having an idea in your head with a very loose deadline. So make sure to create your bigger deadline when the essays actually due and back it up with smaller deadlines that are actually written down. And then you know that you're not going to lose track of your essays and you can stay on top of things without adding stress because deadlines do creep up on you. So let's avoid that by making a plan.